Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Get Ready for Industry 4.0. My name is Fran Laerdesen. I'm with DesignPoint. I see a lot of familiar names on our attendees list here, so nice to see everyone, at least virtually. I'm filling in for Brett today. Brett Dunn, he had to be away from the office, so couldn't attend. I'm going to do a quick introduction here. Of course, those of you who know DesignPoint, you know us well. We are very passionate about great products, about fanatical service, and really about building trusted partnerships with our customers and our partners like SIBO here today. Really happy to have this opportunity to introduce to our customers another great product in SIBO. So today, what you'll see is this webinar is really designed to give us a framework for what Industry 4.0 means for your company. What are the business benefits it provides, and how can you best prepare for it? We'll hear from Miguel Schwartz, Director of Business Development at SIBO, who has worked with dozens of industrial manufacturers on their IoT planning and delivery process. Additionally, we'll hear from Dr. Ching Ao, CEO of DoraBright. He'll speak firsthand about his company's preparation for Industry 4.0. That's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Miguel and let him get started for us.
Thanks very much, Fran. I appreciate it, and big thank you to DesignPoint for organizing this webinar today. As you can all see, in this webinar, we'll be talking about the challenges for adoption and practical steps for your company to be in the best position to deal with these new technologies and the new realities. Before you begin, if you look at your screen, there's a Q&A option. At any point during the webinar, please feel free to click on that and add a question. Fran will be looking over those and asking the questions towards the end. We also have a few polls during the webinar, and we'll ask as we go along. Your answers are completely anonymous. They're for us to know a little bit better where you guys are standing today in terms of industrial IoT development. So actually, we're going to start with a poll, and we'd love to know where everybody is at the moment in terms of developing IIoT or an Industry 4.0 products. Is it something on the roadmap? Do you have IoT systems in the market already? Let's see where everyone is out. If you'd like, you can fill in the poll. We'll give you guys a moment to do that. Great. Thanks for everybody who filled that out. We'll come back at the end and discuss a little bit more, but I think that what we're seeing from your answers is pretty in line with what we're seeing across the market today with our clients and the company that we're speaking to. So a little bit about IIoT development. I think when you look at this roadmap, thinking about both kind of where you guys are today in terms of thinking about the business opportunities, and that's really over on the left side where we're talking about ideation and definition. So that includes even concept ideation and selection, going through prototyping, pre-development, development, preparation for production, analyzing and improving. It's a long road from the beginning of IoT to actually deploying a system that's bringing business value. And I think it's helpful to begin to realize that there's a lot of obstacles between the beginning of the process and kind of having a fully deployed system. And that's one of the things that we have dealt with a lot at SIBO. And so I think that's a good place to start for today. In terms of the challenges for getting to IoT, we like to think of the product development process in 4 stages. You guys are probably familiar with most of these or have a similar process in terms of defining and validating and then delivering and improving and doing it again. So the top challenges that we see in the definition stage, and you saw that image a moment ago, you can imagine that failure to capture business opportunities is probably the most critical failure in this process, an obstacle, because IoT systems are complex and errors at the beginning of the process can lead to great costs along the way. We see this in terms of unclear and incomplete use cases. We see this as a big obstacle to getting started in IoT. Part of that is because systems are complex, it's hard to communicate around them, it's hard to come up with the use cases in a line. That takes us into the next stage, which is validation. It's hard for companies to validate market fit and early buy-in. It's hard both internally, in terms of getting the stakeholders within a company aligned. We see that with small clients of ours, and we see that with multinationals that our customers are. But it's also hard to get a voice of the customer and get customers to understand what it is that's being planned and how that's going to affect them. And of course, it's at this point where mistakes come out of the napkin phase and into development, and then of course get more expensive. And what we've seen is companies that prototype products that end up not being financially feasible or end up being technically much more difficult than expected, and thus the project stalls out or fails completely before it goes too far. When companies get to this point at which they've begun the delivery process, and to be honest, a lot of times that happens early or too early in IoT projects, there's a skills gap in certain cases, a capacity gap in other cases, where it's hard and it's new to build data-centric systems. And we often see issues around teams not being aligned. And so some of the things that we'll talk about is how to make that happen. Partly by creating detailed, complete spec documents, keeping them up to date. And finally, and probably the most important, the IoT at the end of the day is designed to deliver data, and more than that is designed to deliver insights, and even more than that, it's designed to deliver insights that are meaningful. And what we see a lot of times is that companies get to the point where they're getting data out, and there's so much noise there, and there's so much data that it's hard to pull out the actionable insights and the signal, and unable to pull the root causes out from either product malfunctions or predictive, whatever it was that the business wanted, not always delivered. So I'm going to now switch gears and start talking about Industry 4.0. And the first thing is go beyond the buzzwords. I think IoT or IIoT or Industry 4.0 gets thrown around a lot, and it's very easy to get confused or overwhelmed by that buzzword IIoT. And what I like to do is put it in context of, at the end of the day, this is a way to drive business value and a way to answer questions from data and from sensors that are going to add value to the processes that you're doing today, whether that's predictive maintenance, whether that's any of the things that you're interested in doing by implementing one of these systems. So here's some data about where companies are at today in terms of IoT. We see that 60% of companies have planned some sort of an IoT initiative. 80% of companies, a little bit over 80% of companies, see value in IoT for maintenance and performance. So that's the lion's share, 4/5 there. And then about 3/4 of companies say that IoT data can improve products. That means that companies are using this data to then improve future generations of products. I would say that between those use cases, that makes up most of what we're seeing today. Then about half of companies are using IoT to make their production more efficient. And of course, this all is expected to impact the economy by 2030 in a giant way. That $14 trillion number is always what people are saying. And depending on which consulting companies you ask, it can be bigger or more or much bigger. Great. So quick poll about IoT challenges. We're going to open up a poll here, which is, what are your main challenges? And go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, we'll take another couple of seconds to let anybody who hasn't voted yet, but that's very interesting responses. We'll come back at the end and I think distribute these responses and let you guys see the answers, but very interesting set of responses that in general, again, parallel what we've seen. Okay, the next section of the webinar is tips for how to prepare for IoT, and a process or best practices that we here at SIBO have seen work over and over again in terms of how to get companies ready. The 4-step guide for IoT preparation that we've seen works is starting with defining business goals. Again, IoT as a technology is just a technology, and just like any technology or tool, it can be used to drive business value, or it can be used to kind of not add much. And so it's really important that the business side of the companies are involved in defining the business goals. We have a ability to understand customer pains and do voice of customer to better understand their pains. In the third step, ideate product concepts, and then in the fourth, assess feasibility. At the end of this 4-step process, companies are in a much better position to begin to do IIoT or Industry 4. So step 1, define the business goals. What we see is, as you saw on the slides and on from the statistics earlier, that productivity and efficiency and performance and resilience are the 2 main goals that companies are driving at right now for IIoT. Productivity and efficiency can be around lower operational costs. It can enable condition monitoring or remote monitoring. So that is being able to understand what a machine or what an asset is doing from far away, sending data to the cloud, mainly to maximize asset utilization or minimize downtime. Then performance and resilience is also around minimizing downtime, reducing maintenance costs, making sure that the right parts are stocked in the right time, and enable performance benchmarking. A lot of companies today are using this to test whether one line is working better than another, and then trying to get to the bottom of why that's happening. Then there are other companies that are looking at safety and quality, improving product quality or improving adherence to regulation or worker safety. There's a set of data-driven product innovation. We can talk about a little bit about a case study where a company was using data to try and increase their productivity in each of their machines in each iteration, and actually found a way to reduce maintenance on those machines by looking at the data. And of course, there's the ability to grow sales and the ability to better understand how the products are used. The main thing is really to think about what's going to move the needle for the business that you're looking to create an IIoT product for. We're going to ask another poll question here, which is, what are your company's leading business goals? Now, I know some of you answered not a big number, but some number answered that they don't right now have a clear plan for IoT, but you may still have you may still be able to answer what your main business goals are. So if you do have an IoT plan right now, then please answer with respect to that. If you don't, then answer what are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in terms of, or where do you see the value around business? Great. So actually, the mix of responses here are more varied than we've seen. In general, it's split between the productivity and efficiency, which is where we see usually most of the companies answer. To today, we're seeing companies that are looking to both do data-driven innovation and increase sales and revenue streams. So that's great. It sounds like there's a range of business goals that are here that at least represented. Okay, so it's not any different than probably what the processes that you have in place that are done today. It's just more complex with IoT because there's more moving parts. And what we encourage is the discover, quantify, and then prioritize process. And the important thing is to have an ability to describe and validate what it is that actually you guys are proposing. And so in the discover process, we encourage interviews with customers and customer service team. Oftentimes your customer service team will have great insights as to what could be used. And we've heard from our clients that are leveraging trade shows to ask what other companies are doing and also see what other companies are doing, also get prospect insights. And And then, of course, if you can create a visual model or a way to actually get the client or the prospect to understand what's being proposed, that's a great way to get real feedback. I think people don't always know when something is talked about what it is that they can see, but a good picture here is worth 1,000 words. And quantifying the revenue opportunity is similar to how it is done with non-IoT systems. And then prioritizing is oftentimes in the internal process, but where again that validation and that ability to validate with stakeholders can help assess the relevance of IoT to solve its top product and service issues. And once that's done, move on to ideation. So once companies know which products or which business issues are trying to be solved, what we like to encourage, or what we've seen works really well, is agile concept development, where we see the formation of multidisciplinary teams, including service and technology, oftentimes service and R&D, and creating a structured process for idea capture, feedback, and stage gate go, no-go decisions. Having a good data strategy with a clear understanding of what the data analytics will look like. At the end of the day, providing the data in a visually digestible way so that insights can be pulled out is really critical. And so having a mock-up of dashboards, having a good, clear understanding of what those are going to look like and what alerts will be, that's really critical as well. Then finally, the initial concepts, go ahead and create specifications for that. So from the business goals, aligning that from the product, going into the product units, into the functionality, the sensors, and the analytics, so that there's a clear plan from the high level down to the actual implementation plan. Okay, and then once you have that plan, time to assess feasibility. What we have seen work well is having both internal know-how and third parties. There are third parties that are able to very quickly help assess both financial and technical feasibility, help build a cost model, make sure that on the technical side, the communication protocols for going from the product to the cloud is clear. Choosing the cloud, for example, is a good time to do that. And then prototype for technical validation. And then there's the refining process so that the spec gets iteratively refined until it's ready to go to production. Great. Now that we've talked about the high level, I want to introduce our next speaker, which is Dr. Qing Ao, the CEO and co-founder of Durabright. As the co-founder of Durabright, Dr. Ao is leveraging IoT to bring forward-thinking products with integrated smart technologies to the world, improving safety, increasing quality, and enabling professionals to deliver their best. Dr. Ao?
Be with you all. I want to talk briefly today about how Durabright prepared for Industry 4.0 and why we did it. For Durabright, IoT is an opportunity to meet 4 key objectives. We want to position ourselves to rapidly dominate the market by making our products stand out from the competition and eventually becoming the #1 choice for lighting solutions. While most of our competitors are still placing focus on optical output, Durabright wants to build on our distinctive patented technology to offer customers state-of-the-art features and functionalities. So launching an IoT-enabled product will definitely strengthen our brand leadership. And this feeds into our next 2 objectives. The IoT process has greatly enhanced our internal innovation. It really opened up numerous possibilities for our product lines, from design to integration and data collection. In terms of product improvements, IoT will enable us to quickly monitor the health of our products, identify the root cause of issues, and can also help us see exactly how products are used by customers. With this important insight, we can roll out in the future new features that improve adoption and understand which added services will prove valuable. Our final goal is to put customers at the forefront, of course. Making our products IoT enabled is ultimately about providing new value to our customers, from an improved user experience to added safety features and increased efficiency. We chose our first IoT concepts to develop with these goals in mind. The product that is currently under development is to enhance lighting for boats and yachts. The product will include a range of features like remote control, monitoring, motion sensing, and intelligent energy saving capabilities. Planning and integrating IoT is something completely new to us, and we don't have the in-house capabilities to carry it out. At the same time, bringing on new salary employees to lead the initiative would add too much to our overhead. And as you all know, hiring the right guy to do the right job for the right price is just very challenging and time-consuming. Usually, you will have to go through a trial and error process, but unfortunately, we don't have that luxury here. And so, we needed to find a lean method to do so. The first moment when we realized this technical knowledge gap became apparent was when our engineering team first discussed about the design and integration requirements to make our lights IoT enabled. We simply lacked the know-how for industrial IoT designs. The next challenge we had was to understand the cost impact of each IoT concept has on the final product. Truth of matter is, features drive price and price drive sales. So we needed a financial and technical feasibility assessment of our IoT product so that we didn't need to invest heavily in concepts or prototypes that did not fit the market or could not be implemented in practice. To make sure we didn't go down the wrong path, we knew we would have to find the right partners and outside experts for executing the various stages of this IoT development. And this has to happen quickly and at a low cost. With those partners, we knew that quickly prototyping the product for customers to test and give feedback would be key for securing early buy-in. So how did we tackle these challenges? Well, that's where SIBO comes in, and we are really lucky to have an IoT development platform like this to help us. Right now, DuraBright is in the delivery stage of the IoT lifecycle. To get here, we came up with multiple IoT concepts for our products. We visually model every one of them on the IoT platform, and we then down select. We created a spec of the product inside our model, and it included requirements for the product, the logic of its behavior, and the IoT sensors needed to carry out the functionality the way we conceive. The model was then automatically configured into a virtual prototype. We used it to communicate our concept to stakeholders and customers alike. The virtual prototype was also used to test the logic of our product spec, and we iterated it as needed. Now here comes the best part. Inside the Siebel Platform, you will find a thing called the IoT Marketplace. This is where we get hooked up with a good list of reliable suppliers and experts on demand. All of a sudden, I get all these experts working for me, and they are not even on my payroll. How cool is that? So I consider them basically an extension of my team, and I can pick and choose the makeup based on what I need at any given time. This feasibility really helps drive my development cost down, and this model gives me that peace of mind that the execution will be done right the first time. With our partners in place, we design the integration of the sensors to make sure the product is technically feasible. We also down costs, and I was able to even cross-shop between vendors from that IoT marketplace to make sure I get the most optimized solution possible. Currently, we are rolling out the physical prototype ahead of mass production. What you can also see is that this closed loop cycle ends with learn and improve. Of course, we are learning throughout this process, but once the product launches to market, we'll be using behavior analytics to see exactly how our users engage with the product. And this will help us understand where to improve. So, what does this all mean for you? I want to wrap up with my own takeaways that I think will prove useful for any company preparing for Industry 4.0. The first thing is to come up with anywhere between 5 and 20 IoT concepts where you can methodologically narrow down to a winning IoT product idea. The second is to innovate, is to involve experts throughout the development process. This is especially true at the outset when you are thinking about design, integration, and how to ensure feasibility. At every stage of the process, you will need to lead collaboration across a multidisciplinary team with full visibility. It's important to go into development understanding the opportunities and challenges this presents. You might be thinking that IoT development is complicated or even risky, and it's true. But I think the good news is that with a platform like SIBO, we can streamline and significantly simplify the process from concept to market. This allows you to carry out your IoT initiatives without sacrificing time and money you don't have, and will also minimize the distractions from your primary workload. I want to leave you with something I learned recently, and that's the power of IoT to change your company's innovation process. For DuraBright, this is just the first of many of our IoT projects to come. Once we have proven success, our plan is to implement IoT across our organization and product line, transforming our product development process and taking full advantage of the opportunities afforded by Industry 4.0. And with that said, best wishes to your businesses, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks, Dr. Au. Really appreciate your time today. And although some of the audience is familiar with SIBO, some of them are not. And I wanted to take a few minutes to introduce what SIBO is as a platform and as a solution, and show you guys a use case of what that looks like. So we've spoken about a number of different use cases of how companies are driving value with IoT adoption, but what we've seen is that most companies today are looking at condition monitoring or remote condition monitoring as the top driver, and so today's demo will focus on how condition monitoring is helping UltraPack, this company here, to drive business value. And I'm going to talk briefly about UltraPack's business issues. The main one being that they they're an OEM. They provide secondary packaging machines to the market, and they wanted a solution whereby they could understand what was happening on the machines and reduce warranty costs by reducing downtime and by being able to predict when things in the machine were going to go wrong. So they used SIBO, and they used the SIBO solution to deliver first a proof of concept and then now a deployed system by doing a process where we went through a discovery and requirements gathering process. That's the gray box over there on the left. Then SIBO provided a virtual prototype of the system on the platform, and then delivered to them these dashboards that we're going to see in a moment. So what does that look like? Here's the SIBO platform, and here's UltraPack's workspace, where we see the virtual model of the IoT system. This virtual model was based on a discovery with a discovery process that UltraPack did with SIBO. And what you're looking at here is the virtual model. Here we're in the modeling module of the Siebel Platform, where we have the 4 asset types displayed visually. So you have here a virtual model of the physical asset, the machine itself, a virtual model of the digital assets, these are the dashboards, a virtual model of the cloud and the gateway, and in their case also an application. Now these icons that are represented on the screen each represent some sort of behavior or component that is part of the machine. Either some kind of a sensor, for example, a speed detector, or a clock synchronization, in this case a PLC that exists on the machine. This was again a part of the discovery process with UltraPack. We then went through creating dashboards, creating a mock-up of the IoT cloud and the gateway. Each of these asset types has a set of libraries with predefined components that makes the discovery and the ideation process very simple. We then also went through a set of use cases, and that's captured here. The great thing about the Siebel Platform is it helps companies to align their business objectives up here with what is actually going to be delivered down here. So you can see that each of the use cases is associated with some kind of business objective. Then for validation, this system was correct. We went to the simulate module and simulated the use cases that we had created on the platform. So now we're going to see 2 use cases. One is that the machine is sending sensor data, in this case temperature data, from the temperature sensor on the machine through the PLC, connecting to a gateway that's then sending temperature data to the Microsoft Azure cloud. Once that data is on the cloud, UltraPack decided that they wanted to analyze that data on the cloud, which is a choice that they made based on their business goals. And in this case, we're seeing what a high temperature alert would look like in the both as sent to the HMI, to the human machine interface, and to the application. Then we also can jump over to the analyze module, which is where UltraPack gets their data today. So today, UltraPack is getting data on 3 of their manufacturing sites around the world, 1 in the US, 1 in South America, and 1 in Europe. And each of these different dashboards presents a set of mission-critical information that's designed for particular users. And that's one of the great things that the SIBO system allowed them to do, was design the dashboards with the personas of the users in mind. Like most dashboards, you can filter by time. You have here the KPIs that matter most to the management up here. We can then click down and go into the site view. You can see here, for example, that the Utah site has produced the most units over the last few months, and that there's also a set of alerts that are happening down there. So let's go into the Utah site and examine what's happening there. You can see here data just on the Utah site. So the site manager would be very interested in his main KPI, which would be site availability. He or she can now look at site energy usage, both in terms of average energy usage by machines and total energy use. You can begin to see some interesting patterns that happen as well. And those patterns have to do with downtime and production. So we can now go into, let's say, the alerts, and these alerts are sent to the relevant people and help to really pull out the signal from the noise of the data. So we can click in and understand what's happening on a very clear level. We can then further go and get into the line manager's world at the machine view, and we can see, let's take the last month of data and look at some interesting events where there's some downtime. We can now begin to see that these events have a pretty predictable path. Where we begin to see vibration increase, we begin to see temperature increase, we begin to see belt wear increase. UltraPack went and started investigating what was happening in these downtime events, and what they found was that belt wear was being very negatively affected by some metal debris that was getting caught in some kind of next to the belt, and this metal debris was causing the belt to wear prematurely. And so they were able to do 2 things based on this new data. One is to set alerts on belt wear and on vibration around this data, around this level, so that they could stop these events before they happen, clear the debris, and then go back to production. The other thing that they're doing now is retrofitting their machines with debris shields to keep the debris out of that area and keep them from keep the machines healthier for longer. So that was one of the ways that IoT, or the ability to see this real-time data, was able to give them a view on what they should be doing and how to bring value to their customers. The last piece was this, the last dashboard that we'll show today is this machine comparison, which is very helpful for determining whether a line is working better or worse, or whether there are different values to be extracted from running processes in different ways. So that's a quick description of how SIBO helped UltraPack. And again, this is this is the description of how this happens. And in terms of next steps, you can, if this process seems interesting to you and seems like something that you want to explore, especially on the discovery and design, you should please contact the folks at DesignPoint in order to set up this discovery and design, which will be the first set of steps before moving on to some kind of a proof of concept. And through that discovery workshop, have a graphical model of the end-to-end solution, mock-up of those dashboards that you saw, and choose if your team will either customize the solution or have SIBO customize it for you.
Okay, this is Fran again with DesignPoint. I'll jump in here, Miguel. We do have a couple questions here. One of the questions is it possible to watch this at a later date? And yes, we'll be shooting out a link to everyone who attended, and with so you can watch the recording for the video. So that's kind of the blocking and tackling. Get that out of the way. There is a question here quickly for you, Miguel. It's how can a manufacturer's factory go smart? Whether the existing and how does the existing machinery that may not be smart get connected to drive the business goals that you're talking about? Like the increased productivity, safety, and reduced downtime.
Okay, that's a great question. So if I'll just repeat the question: how do factories go smart, and what do we do about existing machinery? So absolutely, we have lots of clients that are working on smart factories. IIoT can be implemented by OEMs, and we're seeing that happen, but absolutely also seeing that factories are implementing the solution as well. So that leads to stuff like predictive maintenance, like remote monitoring, and many ways to get a factory going smart. So first of all, most factories have a set of machines that are running PLCs. That data can be sent to a cloud where we can then provide dashboards and analytics. We can also, we've worked with companies to deploy retrofit sensors, what we call non-intrusive sensors, and we modeled the same type, in the same type of way that we demonstrated with the UltraPack case, the integration simulation and of the factory space and how that's deployed.
Okay. Fantastic. And there's one other question here with regards to analyzing the data. Why are companies struggling to analyze this data they're currently getting from their IoT products that are on the market?
Oh, that's another great question. Okay, so first of all, one of the things that we see is that companies start developing IoT without a clear data strategy, and that means that only once the sensors are collecting data, that's they're beginning to think about, okay, so how do the alerts flow? Where do the alerts go? Who gets the alerts? And the challenge and the great opportunity of IoT is the amount of data that's produced. And what ends up happening is companies will create data lakes, and then it's very hard to pull out the signal from the noise. So we find that the real key is trying to understand what is the data strategy, and then pulling out that data in the way that's going to best answer the questions from the get-go. The other thing is that SIBO provides a set of simulated analytics, so you can actually inject into the dashboards, because of the virtual prototype that's created on the Siebel Platform, you can actually create a simulated you can create this virtual prototype and then inject simulated data into that so that you can see what the dashboards will look like or visualize the data from the get-go before even coding a single line. And because of that, we actually are helping companies to decide whether that's the direction they want to go, and if they want to iterate on that, they can do that before starting to code and before spending money on that.
Okay, fantastic. That wraps up the questions. Any final comments, Miguel?
No, thanks again, Fran, for hosting this webinar, and appreciate very much everybody who participated.
Okay, fantastic. And I said this does wrap up the webinar here for everyone. We will be following up with a recording to everyone who's attended in case you need to share that or watch it again. And we look forward to everyone joining future webinars. And if there's any questions, certainly reach out to us. Thanks again to everyone for their time, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you.